Yes. Put this back a bit. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, brother. Loud and clear. I'm just setting up the because I'm on my iPad. I have to use something to prop it up.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Light sorted, but my sound's coming through okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Do.
There we go. Whew. Okay, good to go. How are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm all good, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can move your camera up, then you can, because you're chopping the top of your head off.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, so guys, it's Fight Fan TV Live. It's Danny Glover. You know who it is. Persistence beats resistance. I'm here joined with the pugilist boy, Tony, and we're here to discuss a couple of issues that have arisen, or speculations that have arisen in the boxing world as of late. First one we're going to start with is the ongoing headache of an episode between one other than Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. We've had Tim Smith from PBC. He is saying that he believes that economics is the reason for the hold-up and delay of why this fight has not been made, because they believe they don't want to make Terence Crawford a bad offer to offend him, and they're not sure if the money's there for both of the fighters. So, Tony, what's your thoughts and beliefs and opinions on this statement by Tim Smith?
So I found it to be a little bit bizarre that the guy who is considered, if not the #1 pound for pound fighter in boxing right now, to be at least the #2 boxing pound for pound fighter in boxing right now, that he's not a sufficient star in the game of boxing to be able to have a pay-per-view with a guy who has a good pedigree of pay-per-views in Errol Spence Jr. So I find it a weird statement to say, I can put Errol Spence in with, who was his last pay-per-view? Was it Sean Porter, Spence's last fight?
No, Danny Garcia.
Danny Garcia, who has no real track record himself of being some kind of great pay-per-view guru. So you're putting your guy in with anybody, you know, Porters and Khans, and you've got an opportunity to match him against the pound for pound, or at least the second best pound for pound fighter in the world of boxing, arguably the best fighter in your division. A fight which has been muted in the boxing community by anyone and sundry, anybody you talk to about boxing over the last 3 years at the minimum, they'll tell you, if you look at them and say, who are your top fights that you would like to see make, Spence Crawford has got to be one of the top 2 fights that any boxing purist will mention. So it's without a shadow of a doubt a fight that can generate some form of revenue whereby you can pay a man. And if you were to say, you know what, I haven't got the money, all you have to do is say, I'm going to pay my guy. Top Rank, because when he was with Top Rank, you said to them, listen, you pay your guy. And we make this fight work. Because this is a fight which will generate sufficient revenue for both PBC and Top Rank, as it was at the time, to make enough money to cover their salaries and more.
Yeah.
And if you look at the cash cow in boxing, who is Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting all and sundry, fought 4 times last year, yeah, against guys who, quite frankly, didn't have great numbers themselves. So it just goes to show, you don't need to have huge numbers to be able to entice the boxing public to come and see your guy who is a star. I'm saying it, Spence is a star because his numbers tell you he's a star. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to bring another good dance partner to the dance and create such a buzz, yeah, that you can do a huge, what we would call a super fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget, boxing has a history of creating yearly super fights. Yeah. Floyd was a master at it. He could create the buzz. He could work with a good dance partner, and between them, they managed to generate the money. I'm not expecting this to do Floyd numbers, but I am expecting it to do significant enough money that they could turn to both fighters and say, you know what, here's what we can offer you.
Mm. What do you feel, how much do you feel both fighters may be looking for? Because I'm sure they'll both be looking for career high purses, and going by the research that me and yourself have done, based the kid, it seems Errol Spence's biggest purse was $8 million when you take into his pay-per-view account as well, against Mikey Garcia. And Terence Crawford's rough salary is between 6 and 8 million, which he was getting from Bob. Yes, Bob was losing, but that was the salary Terence was on.
Exactly.
So you have to beat it, and I'm pretty sure it's fair to say that if they was to give Terence 10 and Errol 12, that they wouldn't be losing money. I think this is more than a $22 million fight.
Absolutely. And that's what it boils down to. This fight cannot be less than a $22 million fight. There's no way. The boxing public is baying for this fight. Pay-per-views alone, I'd expect it to top the 100K, maybe even 150 to 200K.
Oh no, easy. Because remember, Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia was 650,000 buys, 650. So this would at least 500K, because even Spence Porter was 250 for Spence Porter was 250. So.
So based on those numbers, you're expecting a huge pay-per-view output. You know, you're talking rights around the world, because this is an international fight that the world wants to see. Sales of this fight in the UK, a public which has a huge baying for boxing, would be huge. You know, we've got Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. Those guys are getting big money each. And you're telling me you can't sell Crawford against Spence? Come on, man. These guys are in the money business. But for some reason, there seems to be an impasse where they can't see further than their nose in terms of being able to recognize the opportunity which is in front of them to make huge amounts of money in a single fight, a rematch, possibly a trilogy. Because you know, when you've got two guys at the top of their craft like this, these are the types of fights where you could say, you know what, I could see this being a 2 or 3 fight situation if things go the right way.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, because Spencer's last few fights have been in that Dallas stadium.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I'm pretty sure they're not going to struggle at the gate.
Absolutely. So once again, this is one of the few fights in world boxing you can guarantee you're going to have a UK contingent of boxers, of fans saying, yeah, this is the one I wanted to see. I'm gone. I'm there. Book my flight.
Yeah.
You know,
After I wanted to, I'll fly.
I
I'll
would do that. That's
yeah.
one of, you know, there's certain fights in your lifetime where you say, I want to be there. So for me, Holyfield Tyson, Lewis Holyfield, yeah. Never got to see Pacquiao. I know you did.
Nah, I never saw him live.
No, I thought you went to see one of his fights. You
Oh,
saw Errol, didn't you? Sorry, you went to see Floyd.
no, Ward. Ward Kovalev won.
Andre Ward Kovalev, right? Okay. So you know those are the situations when you see a big fight and you go, yeah, that's the one. You know, I went to David Haye Klitschko. You know, I thought that was going to be a big one for me. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, you know, boxing people, we know we save our money, and when the big fight comes, it's like, yeah, you know, and that's just counting overseas ones. I've been to countless great fights in the UK. Ben against Eubank, and Frank against Lennox, Frank against McCall. You know what I mean? So, you know, us real fight fans, we go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
If enticed with the right dance partners. Yeah. And what you seem to get less of nowadays is those good days where you go, you know what? I'm going to stack this card. I'm going to bring the whole freaking world to this fight. Yeah. I remember going to see my guy, Julio Cesar Chavez, against Terence, what was his name? The guy who beat Frankie Randall.
Okay.
Yeah, Frankie Randall. The undercard, Julian McClellan against
Gerald McClellan.
Gerald McClellan against Julian Jackson was on the undercard.
Oh, was that undercard fight?
Serious, bro. That's what I'm telling you.
Wait, I don't know about you. Straight up. Yeah.
So I had, and then I had Terry Norris on that card. I had, oh man, that fight card was ridiculously stacked. Ridiculously stacked. So, you know, Eddie knows what he's doing. You know, all you have to do is take a leaf out of Eddie Hearn's book and say, you know what, let's do what Matchroom do. Let's make sure we stack this card with the right people in the right places. Make sure you've got local favorites so they can come from local and fill the arena. Because if you want to fill Dallas Stadium, put Charlo on the undercard.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then you guaranteed all of Texas is in that stadium.
Yeah, and the thing is, Terrence has certain fighters which he classifies as his friend.
That's
Errol
right.
has certain fighters that he classifies as his friend. Yeah. So I'm sure they can put their mates on their undercard. What's his name? Maurice Hooker.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if Shakur Stevenson can get up from under Bob, but there's certain fighters around.
Yeah, there's certain fighters that you know, these guys, they would go, you know what, this card here, I want to be on that show. And you know what, when you put together a show with that headline, that's the kind of headline that guys want to be in, because they know I'm going to get the opportunity to showcase my skills. You know, you look at Campbell Hatton. Campbell Hatton is all over everybody's show, but he's doing it because he knows, well, you know what, I'm going to get my name out there.
Yeah, and also in history, when you look back on your career, you can say, I was on that show. I was on that show.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what boxing is for me. Boxing is about signature fights. And my way of recognizing excellence and legends and putting them in their pecking order is how many guys can you say you fought where that was a signature fight? And one of the issues that I have with certain fighters is they don't have the caliber of fighter on their resume to be able to turn around and say, yeah, I finished my career, I'm a legend. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So Ali is my favorite. And you know the resume is ridiculous. 3 times Foreman, 3 times Fraser, Foreman, 3 times my guy that I just posted up the picture with the other day, Ken Norton. You know, all the big fights that you look and go, well, yeah, man, Ali, he fought them all. He's got bare Hall of Famers on his resume.
Yeah, and that's a good point, you know, because that's the thing. If you don't have these super fights and these career-defining fights, where do the next generation of Hall of Famers come from? Because who's going to be eligible to make a ballot if you haven't fought fellow Hall of Famers where you can talk about, you know, do you remember the fight you caught me with that right hook and that really hurt? And
I mean, we all love Gervonta Tank Davis, but the kid's ruining his legacy because he's just fighting nobody. You know, we know he's potentially one of the best top. I think he could be top 3 fighter in the world right now. I personally believe he could be top 3, but he hasn't shown out. He needs to be in fights where you go, yeah, you know. And it's all very well knocking out Santa Cruz, but Santa Cruz is what weight was Santa Cruz fighting at? You know what I mean? You're bringing up little man.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, because it's disappointing because with Tank Davis, he started off so well with the Pedraza, and then he come over to England and done the Liam Walsh thing to get his name out.
And then Gamboa.
Then they just pulled the reins on him and started getting him like less stellar opponents than he was fighting, say 3-4 years ago. So it's like Leonard Ellaby kind of taking his career down a funny path because he should be going to potentially Australia and getting the Cambosos fight. And then when he grabs all the belts, no one's going to call him paper nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's got the power. I think he has the power.
Yeah.
And skills to knock out someone like Cambosos. You wouldn't say, "Oh, Cambosos going to do him over."
You know how I feel about that WBA regular title, because at the end of the day, you know it's not a real title. But I'm always going to say, you know what? Them men are going to turn around and say, well, yeah, it was a 3-time world champion, but you never really won the real belt. Yeah? But in the annals of history, which we so commonly talk about, yeah, them men are going to be in the book and saying, I was a world titleist at 3 weights.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate.
Off the canvas in the house.
Okay, yep, shout out off the canvas. I'm a bit far away from the thing.
Ash Jones is in here.
Crawford be too old for 3 fights if they ain't in quick succession. I don't think so. He looks after himself.
Yeah.
He's not like someone like Errol's career is going to be shorter than Terrence's, to be fair. And Spence is my guy, but I know
Crawford don't get beaten.
Yeah,
he's never took a beating in his life. He walks out of fights looking fresh as day.
Yeah, he does. He looks exact same.
Errol's come out of fights and he's got bloody broke up iron thing. You know what I mean? But Crawford, the guy takes no beatings.
Plus, Errol's feels he has alternative options. But off the canvas, where would these alternative options be to make himself, as Tony says, in the annals of history, a Hall of Fame ballot entrant in 15, 20 years' time? Because it's all good having options fighting guys, but if you ain't fighting people who are going to be also in the Hall of Fame, because you need a lineup. There ain't just one Hall of Famer in Catastona. You need a lineup, so you need fellow members. So where are these members? Where are these members going to come from? You've got to fight fellow members, because that's how your vote, the voting chance of you getting in gets stronger. This is why someone like Nigel Benn gets nominated, but he never gets awarded into it, because when you look through the CV, it's about who did you fight and when did you fight him. Yes, you've got Joe McLennan, but where's the other wins? You can't talk about what's that win you love to talk about, Tony? What's that win?
Anthony Logan?
No, the American guy. He done him in the first round.
Oh my God, now you get me.
But I said he was on a 4-fight. When you check the annals of history, he was on a 3-fight losing streak, or 4-fight losing.
Barkley.
Yeah, Iron Barkley, but
Barkley.
you don't. It doesn't because it's the three,
Yeah,
four
yeah,
fight
yeah,
losing
yeah, yeah,
streak,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it doesn't count. And
That's
then there was
right.
one
Yeah,
after that against the other American
yeah.
Italian
At
who was
some point in time, just by the powers that be, that fight will get counted and he'll get a look in. I
yeah,
just think at some point, because nowadays you look at who they're admitting into that Hall of Fame, and people are getting admitted on just sheer durability. You're like Chuck Wepner are getting in there and Mickey
yeah,
Ward and all them things. You know what I mean? You're like,
yeah,
really?
yeah, and Gatty because he took a lot of punches, but
Yeah,
that's not really
that's not. Yeah,
yeah, that's not really what you're getting in. You're meant to get in there for. So yeah, to be, in my opinion, Spence needs Crawford.
yeah,
Every legend, every Hall of Famer has said in their interviews, I needed you. Even if they hated the dude. Most times
yeah,
they even hate the guy. Where they go,
yeah,
do you know what? I needed you and you needed me. Ben
yeah,
says that to Eubank. Eubank says that to Ben.
yeah.
Ali says that to
The
Frazier.
phrase up. Yeah,
Back. And
yeah,
these people ain't going to go for no beers or cup of teas or oxtail and rice and peas or grits and fried chicken together.
yeah,
But they know that they needed each other. George
yeah,
Grove and Floch, they hated each other.
yeah.
Now, because of they helped each other out, now they're doing tours together,
There
making
you go.
extra bread in a pandemic. But without that fight,
Yeah,
TV money's drying up. You
exactly.
need your dance partner, man.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Wilder and Fury. You
They're
know,
gonna they're gonna do a tour. The tour will come in
definitely.
20 years. The tour will come.
You can see it. You can tell by the way they talk about each other, and you just know these guys have forged a bond now because of the free fight trilogy that makes it so that they know for the rest of their life, I'm going to be indebted to this guy.
Yep.
Yeah, because Fury knows Wilder saved his life.
Yeah.
This guy was on the road to oblivion. Wilder could have swerved him completely. He shouldn't even have fought Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He DM'd him and told him come back.
yeah,
When really, remember, you have to check Fury's history at the time.
yeah.
He was on narcotics. He was drinking heavily. The British public turned on him because of things he'd said
Yeah.
About certain communities. So he was in the wilderness. He wasn't no everyone loves Fury. There weren't no
Absolutely.
living in America, in Vegas,
Yeah.
in the American shorts. He was in no man's land.
Yeah. You know, that money was going to dry out that he made from the Klitschko fight. His lifestyle was all in the wrong place. So, you know, Wilder pretty much saved his life. And then Wilder's got to thank Fury because you know what? Wilder was no big draw, but these 3 fights have been his biggest earning fights of all time.
Yeah. And even another one in more recent history, David Hay and Tony Bellew. David Hay said, thank you, Tony, because David Hay was going through some financial troubles, living the haymaker lifestyle. He'd been, you know, people had ridiculed him about the toe moan and stuff. But because he'd shown such toughness with a broken Achilles and just thinking, when Eubank Senior's always said, there's a time when you have to take your beating like a man.
Yeah.
And don't punk out of taking your beating after you've given out and dished out how many beatings in your career.
Yeah.
And David Hay knew this is the time I've got to take this first beating, and now I've got to take this second beating.
Yeah. So I
And
mean,
this is why
ultimately, you know, look, them man, they could even approach Eddie and say, look, because let's be honest, the Zone could do that fight with some serious money and some serious backing. Do you know what I mean? If this goes to purse bids, I've no doubt every man and his cat will be throwing their hat in to say, you know what? This is the one we've been waiting for years. I wouldn't mind a piece of that pie. I'm sure Eddie will want a piece of that. Because if it's an open purse bid and you say, you know what? Anybody who bids highest wins it, Eddie and his boys will be in there. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, and with Eddie having the zone with the USA now, it'd be easier for him to stage because whereas before he only would have been able to do it over here. Now he knows he's got American venues, he's built up relationships, so he'd be able. And he's done
if you want to increase the membership for the zone, give the punters Spence against Crawford, and you will see an uptake. I mean, their uptake's good, but I reckon they would be in for a bumper pay spike in terms of uptake. Yeah,
but as Eddie said, he said some fights would have to go on the zone pay-per-view, and that's one of those fights where people will say, do you know what?
Yeah,
this is really a $7.99 fight. I'll pay the 20 quid.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, this is one of them fights where you go to a particular venue and you join, you know what I mean? There's places showing this on in the cinema and stuff like that. Remember back in the day, man, you used to go cinema to watch fights. Man.
Yeah, casinos. I used to go there with Reese Shiguri. I used to go, some pubs used to stay open, do the lock-in. Let's see some comments. Crawford beats him. Spence needs Crawford, vice versa. Yes, they do. Big up Shaq and Pitters inside. Someone said Lalonde. That must have been talking about Sugar Ray
Leonard and Donnie Lalonde.
Errol is trying to go to 154. He'll try use that to boost his CV. Yeah, but who's at 54 to get the Hall of Fame fight?
There's fights there. There's good fights there, but he needs to clean where he's at. He can't move up because everybody will say, you dipped out. You cherry-picked and made sure you didn't fight the guy who was the man.
Yeah, but there's fights.
You might have had more of the belts, but you didn't fight the guy.
Yeah, but there's fights at 154, but the main fight at 154, he ain't going to do because that's his friend, and everyone knows that's his friend.
Yeah,
and he trains him. So you ain't going to fight your training partner. So what? The next one is Castano. Yes, you might want to avenge that amateur loss to Castano, but that's still not a Hall of Fame fight.
No way.
You need your Hall of Fame entry fight. Yes, he tried to grab one with the Pacquiao thing, but obviously his eye went in training. So now you guys grabbed the Hall of Fame fight. so he grabbed that win. So now you need Terrence now because you've lost your Hall of Fame fight.
But I think one of the, I mentioned in the group about the pay-per-view model and the fact that, for me, I think the pay-per-view model is flawed badly now.
Why so?
We looked at the numbers and we saw, like, last year, the two biggest shows were Jake Paul against
Tyron Woodley,
and Floyd against
Logan
Paul. Those were the two biggest pay-per-views. Then you had you had Fury Wilder, that was one, and two Canelo fights.
Canelo Saunders was
and Canelo Plant.
Yeah, but I think Canelo Saunders did more though. Okay,
yeah, I think you're right. And let's be honest, Billy Joe Saunders couldn't sell out Brentford Leisure Centre.
I can't name you any of his numbers off the top of the list. I can't name you Callum Smith's numbers off the top of my head if he's even done one before. Avni Yildirim, come on, let's not be silly. So as you said, it's not always about having two pay-per-view stars. Sometimes you just need one with even a half-decent dance partner. But with two, they're not half-decent. They're both elite. Where even when you ask boxers I watch on, the big stations like IFL, Boxing Social, and Seconds Out and stuff, when they ask fighters, "Oh, what fight would you like to see made this year personally, if not yourself?" And then they say Crawford Spence 9 times out of 10. So I think we've covered that one. And then the second topic is about Ben Davidson's comment about UK trainers being behind the rest of or most of the world in coaching techniques and training techniques his quote is, people go, he's got to work with this fighter, that fighter. Why have coaches who have been in the game 30, 40 years not coach these fighters? They're not good enough, basically. The level of UK coaching is that poor that I've been able to fast track. They're lazy, and that's the reality. What are your thoughts?
Wow. I mean, this is a big statement from Ben Davison. It's a massive statement, and it's a big. I feel like there are some things in life you should make sure you should never do. You know, you shouldn't shit on people who you want to do business with in the future. Yeah?
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like, okay, I do understand where he's coming from. Because what he's saying is, I do the work other trainers don't do. And you know what? Fair play to you, Ben. You've done really well, capitalizing on the couple of fighters that you've managed to get in bed with. Yeah? Doing a great job. And yes, you may be doing other things that those guys aren't doing. But don't shit on the rest of the industry just because you're flying with the two fighters that you got lucky with. Yeah.
Well, off the canvas is saying, as obviously he's being a satire, we all have the same 24 hours. I don't know if you saw that Molly girl say something like that in an interview recently, so that's sort of trending. But yeah, it's a very big shout for a British man who would be classified as a British coach to say that about his fellow compatriots and also his forefathers in the game of boxing. But do you feel that British coaching is behind and has not evolved with the times? Because there was a few years ago when we had a great run of all these world champions, where albeit being some funny titles and weak champions and stuff. But now there's a surge from countries who wasn't really known for letting their guys go pro coming in.
Okay.
Plus America seems to be coming back in the game.
So here's the counter to that. Which country had the most medals at the Olympics?
What, the 2020? 2021.
Yeah. It weren't America. Yeah. It weren't the nations that you think should be up there. It was Great Britain.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh. Not Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan.
Two golds, 2 silvers, and about 3 bronze. Yeah. I think Cuba picked us because they got more golds, but we got more medals than them, and we got more medals than any other country. And if you're going to tell me that American boxing is in such a great place, well, how come their pay-per-view industry is completely dead?
But then to counter that, that is amateur boxing system, which...
Okay, so that's the starting point.
Yeah, I think that's where Ben's going. Because well, not Ben, but somebody I saw in a comment section say that the problem is that Britain has focused now too much on the amateur system, where our amateurs are not able to cross over as well as Americans and Mexicans.
Okay,
and Mexicans are not going to win anything.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the greatest division in boxing, the heavyweight division. Would I be right in saying 3 out of the top 5 fighters in the world right now are Great Britain?
Yeah, you'd be right.
Absolutely. So I don't get it. I do understand this point, and I do understand that there's a difference between America historically, Great Britain and its trainers, you know, all the Eastern European fighters. Because let's be honest, boxing has evolved hugely to the point right now where you got Ukrainians and Kazakhstans and Uzbekistans ruling the roost in the amateur boxing game, and boxing like Sugar Ray Leonard and Floyd Mayweather, because they somehow have morphed their old stand-up, straight back, hands-up technique, yeah, like they used to fight in the 80s, Dolph Lundgren style.
Yeah, robotic.
Exactly. That was a European way of fighting. And now all of a sudden we got all these cats like Usyk and Lomachenko, Beterbiev, and you know what I mean? They're just Bivol. You know what I mean? You're just like, hang on a second. No matter where you turn in boxing, you're gonna find Ukrainians, Kazakhs, Uzbekistan, and you're like, bro, I didn't knew them countries existed until about 5 years ago. But all of a sudden, they've taken over boxing.
Yeah, and Russians as well.
And Russians. So you kind of go, well, the dynamic has changed. America can no longer produce heavyweight fighters. Yeah. The amateur program was pretty much dead in the mud. It was dead in the mud. It's had a little revamp recently.
With that silver medalist guy who looks a bit like Tommy Morrison.
And they got Keyshawn Davis, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, they had the heavyweight.
So it had a little revamp, but amateur boxing in America was in the doldrums. Now let's take it to the pro game. Are American trainers really that good? Let's talk about them. Who's coming out of Kronk only just start back again. So they got one fighter, Tyson Fury. And that's only just by association. So the Kronk gym is what it is. Wild card. Who's wild card got right now?
Well, the Kronk gym, actually, they've got another one where that heavyweight, who I believe is going to be the next coming, that Gerard Anderson trains.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, wild card. You'd think that wild card for the personnel who go in that gym, you'd think you'd have a roster as long as your arm of fighters at the top end. Yeah? Because I take you back, again, I'm going to take you back to the 80s. When I walked in the Detroit Kronk gym in 1984, or 1985 it was, yeah? That gym was stacked.
Yeah.
McClellan, Tommy Hearns, Milton McCrory,
Wilder's ex-trainer.
Obakar. The gym was stacked. Jesse,
What's the guy who used to train Wilder? The Olympic gold medalist guy. The one who used to train Wilder, the black guy.
But Breland.
Yeah, he would have been there.
Was Breland a Kronk fighter?
Yeah, he was a Kronk fighter.
Yeah. He wasn't there at the time. I think because it was 85. I think he was with. I don't think he turned straight into a Kronk fighter.
Okay.
He might not have turned straight because he went from 84 Olympics, and then he kind of did something, and he might have gone Kronk a bit later. But you know what I mean? That was a gym that had pedigree. And now I look around the gyms and you think, okay, well, where are these factories of greatness like the Kronk was? Yeah, Gleason's was a factory at one time. Yeah, you could walk into Gleason's on any given day and see about 4 world champions just sparring and doing all kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm like, well, who are the big guys now in the game? Okay, Virgil Hunter. Who's Virgil training right now?
No, I can't tell you.
You see how the whole thing with, like, you see, this game is one that at any given time a guy can be hot. Like, obviously, your boy up in the north of England, Gallagher, he had a point where this guy was just producing champion after champion. Brendan Ingles' gym.
Yeah, Dominic. Yeah.
You know, down south in England, Peacock and
TKO.
Them guys, you know what I mean? So you have places where they'll go through a spell where they produce, and then it was kind of back up. And then so for Ben Davison to turn around and say, well, these guys ain't doing it, and you come Johnny come lately, bro. So you're gonna tell me that a guy like let me think of so Mark Tibbs and his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tibbs and Cole.
No, Mark and his dad, Jimmy.
Yeah. In them two guys alone, you've got so much experience. Yeah?
Yeah.
So much experience. You're going to tell me, Ben, are you really telling me that Jimmy Tibbs and Mark Tibbs, between the two of them, are not worth a fart because they don't do the things you do?
Well, one of Ben's main fighters is really a Mark Tibbs production in Billy Joe Saunders.
Thank you very much.
But obviously, we know
you benefited from somebody else training a guy, building him up, going through his amateur record, coming pro, taking him for a set of fights, and then all of a sudden, I jumped in and I got the title with the guy. Very well done, Ben. And my hat goes off to you. And yes, I'm not saying you aren't doing things that other trainers are not doing, but don't discredit those who came before you and were doing it for multiple years and have got multiple champions in their resume.
Mm.
Yeah? How are you going to turn around and say, oh, I'm better than Gallagher? How are you going to turn around and say, oh, I'm better than the Ingle Gym? I'm better than Peacock? I'm better. No, mate, you ain't got the pedigree. You got lucky with two of their fighters that transitioned to you, and you're doing a great job, but take your hat off to the people who came before you and are still around. Yeah? You got to give credit where credit is due.
Yep, we've got Ash Jones. Only people Davison's going to do business with is fighters, no other trainers. Well, he seems to be doing business with Devin Haney's dad, Ash Jones, but Molly, mate, okay. How many British coaches are at the same level as Ben Davison? Off the canvas, UK. Best amateur coaches goes to Cuba, yes. But in pro coaches, would you? Well, we've seen a bit of a surge because some Cubans defect. Joshua Fury White, yeah, that's the top 3 thing. Let me try and get a bit further down. Comments section. There's a lot of comments, man. TKO'd a handful of good fighters at one time with Harry Andrews and Jimmy Tibbs. Billy Joe Saunders, Josh Taylor. Well, Josh Taylor was a Shane McGuigan production.
Harry Andrews was my trainer at one time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Josh Taylor was a Shane McGuigan production. Billy Joe was a Jimmy Tibbs. Fury was his uncle's. Haney's is his dad's. So, yeah, that's an argument some people do say is how many... Yeah, you didn't take them from the scratch. So, yeah. It's an interesting take, Ben has said, and he's going to have to really, now he's put some real pressure on his shoulders to have to prove himself, because there's one thing where most of these trainers also, they have their own gym with their own base and their own setup where fighters have to come through their doors, whereas Ben's gone a different route, which I commend, where he's kind of gone traveling and doing like he's kind of like on a work experience thing where he's going around. But then, so it's a good method he's done to work with good top fighters. But then I wouldn't say, I wouldn't step on the guys who have been in the game 30, 40 years and say, why haven't they worked with these fighters? Because when you've got a gym, you can't just up and leave your Ingle gym or your Gallagher stable or Peacocks and go over to America and work with 3-4 fighters, and then fly over to Russia and work with 2 fighters, and then go down to Germany. Because you've got to keep the lights on. Your fighters still need guiding, because especially nowadays with all these distractions, you want to keep some of these good fighters in the gym, because you can't really trust them to be outside the gym too long.
Yeah.
Like,
like
Josh Taylor, he got himself into a bit of trouble being out of the gym. So sometimes you need to have these fighters a bit close, and you've got to stay in your gym. So you can't really travel then.
Yeah. You know, so it is just a bad statement to make in the game. You know, you don't shit on your industry and expect to be seen, for people to look at you and think, you know what, this is a guy I could work with, or this is a guy I can admire, because he's shitting on his own people.
Yeah. But do you feel also that maybe British trainers do need to refine their coaching methods and not just stick to the same old 1-2 left,
Absolutely.
and son.
Absolutely.
The
Yeah.
Mexican brigade are starting to just get sent over here to dismantle our boys, and it's not looking pretty. Oh, hello, Tony. You still there?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why my screen timed out for a second. But can you hear me all right?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, you know, what it is with training as a profession. Yeah. Everybody comes with something to the party. Yeah. So you got defensive minded fight coaches. You got offensive and heavy punch type coaches. Yeah. So if you want to come with a Mike Tyson type style, yeah, low to the ground, lots of head movement, hooks and all that, there are certain trainers style. Whereas if you want to be on your toes like a Floyd, use a shell, roll punches, counter slip and all that, other types of trainers will be the one. Yeah. I remember when I boxed the All-Stars, yeah, Ash will back you up. When I boxed the All-Stars, we boxed a certain way. Yeah. And the trainer would cuss you if you got into a war. Whereas I know other gyms, I walked in, I remember going to Izzard and training there one time. And it was like everybody was in a ring war in the sparring. I'm like, rah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my coach at All Stars was always, use the jab, be first, use the jab, be first, yeah, work on this, work on that. And it was all boxing first. It weren't like, you know, let's go in there and let's just have a tear up and see who can, you know what I mean, stand toe to toe and fall over. Nah, none of that. Yeah. You go to, I went to Kronk, I trained at the Kronk. I see a completely different style. You know, one of my things as a boxing fan, as an ex-boxer, as a fan of the game, as a student of the game, is I've been to all the gyms. I've been to so many gyms because I like to look and just feel and see how these trainers are working. Kronk was mad. The greatest gym in the world of boxing was completely mad. They didn't even have proper rings. They had 2 mats on the floor, created 2 rings in this flicking dungeon, about 3 stories beneath ground level. And these guys were fighting in there, and they had all these old men sat around the ring. You know, like in a barber shop.
Yeah.
And all these old men are like sitting there, he's good, yeah. Bash him up, boy, bash him. And you just see some mad sparring in there. And when I come out, I'm like, I see why they got world champions. Because the sparring was of a different league. But the way the whole gym operated, you could tell. If I want to do this, if I want to be good at boxing, this is where I should come. And this is what made me think. When Dennis Andrews got knocked out by Tommy Hearns, what did he do? He went straight to the Kronk.
Yeah.
And he trained there. Dennis was my guy. He looked after me when I went to the Kronk. Yeah. So that is what it's about. Different gyms offer different things, different trainers. Everybody knows. Who should AJ have right now as a trainer? Should he have a foreign coach? Should he have a British coach? It all boils down to what he feels he's going to do best for him.
Well, that's an interesting point also, because that's another subject matter people have been talking about, because the fight is scheduled for what, April?
Yeah, I think more like May, but yeah, April.
All right, so February, March. So we're like 3.5 months away, roughly. So who is going to be his trainer? Because the time is ticking.
Yes.
And he hasn't actually got, because he's still got, I'm still seeing on his story him going to different coaches.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So he hasn't actually even settled.
He needs to settle down. He needs to be working on that muscle memory, so that he knows whoever's coming in and teaching him the certain moves, the sets, yeah. And we're talking about AJ, yeah. You know, that coach that teaches him stuff is going to say, do this when he does that. You can't do it for a month and two and hope it's going to work out in the fight. And this is the problem I have with Malik Scott. Yeah? People are saying, oh, well, look at what Malik Scott did to Wilder. Sorry, Malik Scott's game plan lasted all of 2 rounds. Yeah? And eventually he reverted to type and he get mash up.
Well, he had a good round 4.
Yeah, he had a good round 4.
Oh,
So
round.
you need to have a prolonged period of time with a trainer. 6 months.
Yeah. Off the canvas says, I'm hearing he's with Robert Garcia. Okay. But if he's with Robert Garcia, I'm seeing him out in Dubai doing pads with some American black guy, which Chris Eubank Jr. is doing the pads with the same guy as well. Obviously, Chris Eubank is fighting next month. I'm not sure if Roy Jones is able to fly, but they're both doing training out there with this American guy in Dubai.
Yeah. I hear there's a lot of trainers out there right now, so I don't know. You just don't know what's going on, but I hear there's more than just, you know, there's a good few trainers out there right now. So I don't know if he's carting them in because he can obviously afford to do that.
Yeah, but Robert Garcia, I haven't seen out there. Even
Spencer Fearon was talking about the trainer, saying he's a good guy that he's working with at the moment.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, but I think he's been introduced to him through Chris Eubank Jr. because Chris Eubank Jr. knows the guy probably through.
Okay.
And maybe that might be the guy, but I haven't seen about because I've seen this guy in all these currents the past few weeks. Even when AJ was doing these wrestling drills with some next guy in Lawrence Okoli, it seemed to be this guy. And he's had some good reviews. Everything I've heard about him from people have been positive. Ashley Fearfane rates him. I forgot the guy's name off the top of my head, but Ashley Fearfane rates him. Spencer Fearon rates him. I don't know if any of you guys might know the guy's name. Sajid said, probably explains why the British fighters go over there for working holidays. Well, also it will help to get the weight off because it's easier to run out in Dubai right now than to run out here because it's going to be a bit harder to get the weight off and trim up. Well, AJ don't need to make weight, but it's easier to get a bit more ripped, ain't it? Yeah. But yeah, I think that we've covered the basis for today. Thank you for those who've come in and joined. Much appreciated. Astros, Chris Eubank's probably changed once again. Now, he's still with Roy, he said. I saw in a recent interview, Ash, that he said he's still with Roy. So maybe Roy can't get to Dubai, but he might be able to make the fight, though. He will be in his corner. Chris Eubank.
I just want to say one quick one, and this is relation the statement yesterday from Tyson Fury calling Alexander Usyk a steroid head.
Yeah, a little stead head, ped head. Where?
Yeah, people in glass houses should never throw stones because don't forget, Mr. Fury, it was you who was all over the drugs.
Yeah.
Who was up? Who got banned from boxing for 2 years? Don't forget. And Usyk has never failed a drug test. And don't forget, he's got an absolutely impeccable amateur record. So how you calling out this guy and calling him all these things unnecessarily for no reason because he never ever pick a fight with you. So this is again, this comes down to this Ben Davison thing. Why are you trashing on people when they're the same people you want to dance with, yeah? And they don't come trouble you. Nobody picked a fight with you, Mr. Fury.
Yeah, even like said hello to him at the Bob Arrows show and birthday. Took a photo. They took a photo together, and all of a sudden, he's called him a little steroid head, and yeah, little stead in, and I'm gonna smash him to pieces. I'm like, okay. Then it's like you see things like that. That then starts making people who don't really have a brain and just follow any word someone says start saying, oh yeah, you know, Usyk's a little drug cheat, you know he's a little juice, right? You know he's a juicy, and then it starts unnecessary narratives when no one's ever. Yeah, I've never heard anything about amateur or pro career, him ever being on the juice.
Yep.
Even when he's come up to heavyweight, it's not like he came up like Holyfield did. It's not like he's looking, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not looking Rashid. He's not blowing people like he's not blowing anyone away.
Yeah.
He's winning these fights on points. He's had a stakeout with Derek Chisora, so you're hardly going to be on the juice. You know, otherwise you'd have blew him away. You didn't even look all that against Chaz Witherspoon. Yeah, you outboxed AJ, but AJ's a man you can outbox because he's not the best, especially compared to someone who, like Usyk, who's fought literally everybody from Sean Porter to Beterbiev a million times. He's been around the block. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He's done all. He won the Super Series.
Don't shit on people you want to do business with, because you know what I mean. If I'm Usyk, I'm vexed.
Yeah, because
I'll be like, who the fuck is this little shit? You know what I mean? He's got nothing on me. I'm a unified champion, Olympic gold medalist. He's fuck all to me. I'd want to chin him one. I'm telling you.
And a former undisputed champion as well. Beat Bradis, Dorticus, Gaskiev. So yeah, he won the Super Series. Like, yeah, and then also, well, he seems to have upset Usyk's big uncle in Vladimir Klitschko, because Vladimir's come out and said
he best watch his back, because they might send two of their boys round.
Yeah,
you know them Ukrainians can fight, bro, and they got some firms, mate. I know. When I was in New York to watch Lomachenko, man, jeez.
Yeah, they've got hands, and he said you got busted for drugs just before you fought me with that ball. So you know you can't be calling people drug cheat when you actually failed.
Can't do that. Can't be doing that, Fury.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's got a timeout in 8 seconds. So it's
all right, guys.
On Fight Fan TV Live. Persistence beats resistance.